Hey everybody, this is Future Sean. In this episode, right after introductions, my internet goes away, and so I want to give a huge shout out to Ken and Wendy for holding this one down while I wasn't there, and big shout out to Juliet for being such an amazing guest. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, one third of the host over here. I'm a senior product marketing manager on the Power Platform team, and I'm joined by...
I'm Wendy Haddad. I am a senior cloud solution architect, delivery lead, and a former customer, and I am joined by...
Not Wendy today, but here to talk about a topic that is near and dear to our heart. Hopefully we have a captain who can helm this particular episode. Wendy, I believe this is a good friend of yours. Would you please introduce her?
This is Juliet Helms. Nice pun there, Ken. She's a senior business outcome specialist. I am super excited for this episode. We've been asking at the beginning of episodes for you to submit feedback on what you want to hear, and this episode actually came out of that. So we're going to be talking about how do you measure the ROI of the platform. And I get to work with Juliet in my day job, and I was blown away by how she's been helping customers think through some of the assessments of their Microsoft investment. So we wanted her to come on to talk about that process. So Juliet, can you talk a little bit more about your specific role and what you're doing with customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really nice to be here. My name is Juliet Helms. I am a senior business outcome specialist, and I'm on a specialty team here at Microsoft called the Customer Business Outcomes team. Name kind of explains what we do. So we focus on customer business outcomes, and we really focus on how customer business outcomes and the technology investments that they are making in order to achieve those outcomes kind of play out. So that is what we do. We come in and we do different types of analysis with customers to understand where they're at in their technology investments today, where they could be into the future, and how those investments impact and affect their outcomes that they're trying to achieve.
Awesome. So as you are walking customers through that, how do you start that conversation? What are the things that they need to consider as they're first measuring their investment and trying to understand the process of ROI? I think that a lot of times business leaders are asking for that budget and, they're trying to measure their investment, but the people who are actually doing the work may not understand the process of actually measuring ROI. Can you talk about a little bit about how they should think of that?
Yeah, that is that's a huge part of what we do actually day in and day out. And the way in which we approach that really depends on where we come in. So we have, I would say, 4 main stakeholders that we work with at our customers. We have our business stakeholders, we have our financial stakeholders, think CFO, et cetera. We have our technology stakeholders, which are usually the doers trying to kind of put together this financial statement for the business and the financial stakeholders. And then I would say a 4th and very special category for us is our procurement stakeholders, who are looking at the investment in and of itself. So when we come in, it really just depends on where we come in. Is it the business bringing us in to help them understand the technology investments that they need to make? Or is it our technology partners bringing us in and saying, I need to create this business outcome statement. I need to create this business value statement for the investments that I'm trying to put into the company and need to build a business case. So a big part of what we do is helping customers build that business case. So when we start talking about ROI, it's really about what are you getting out of the tools that you're using? And so a lot of times people are kind of stuck what I would consider like a more procurement mindset, just like pure cost, looking at it and, over time, what does that mean? But it depends on what you're really trying to do, right? So a lot of times the first question when we start talking about ROI has nothing to do with ROI in and of itself. Starts with why. Why are you looking to make this investment? What are you trying to do, right? Because the why will help you determine the value set, because ROI is really about what is the value that you're getting out of this investment. And in order to start doing that calculation, you have to understand, okay, what are we doing? They're looking for that value. So that really starts the conversation of what is the value you're looking to get out of this investment? And then how do you quantify that value, right? So you're looking to achieve something. And so oftentimes when we're with our technology partners, they kind of have an understanding of why, like, we need to do this, but it's like, okay, so what are your business sponsors trying to get out of it? What are they doing with that? And what's the true value of that thing? And so going back, and sometimes they know and sometimes they don't know. So sometimes we ask to be introduced to the business team just to kind of have that deeper conversation of what are you trying to do? And then what is the value of that? And then you can really put together an ROI statement, because return on investment is not just like the cost of what you're doing, it's the value that you get out of it. And sometimes that value statement is pretty easy to calculate because it's kind of like input, output, very simple. But oftentimes it's a little bit more complicated, especially when you talk about like the Microsoft tool sets, right? The Microsoft tool sets are typically talking about productivity, and measuring productivity is a little trickier, right? It's, some people would say, oh, productivity is a soft cost. I would argue that a bit because there's a true value to that. It's just about what you're going to do with those tools and what is that intended outcome. And so one of the things that we sit down and talk to our customers about is being really intentional with productivity, being really intentional with what they're going to do with productivity, not only with the tool set in and of itself, but also with the time that they save and like, what are you going to do with that time? And so the value of what you do with time is the true value of productivity. And so that is where you can kind of understand the differences in the ROI, is really understanding the value statement of not just time saved, but also intentional what you're going to do with that time.
So, Juliet, I'm going to maybe take a slightly different approach, as I always do with things in the podcast, but I'm going to ask my good friend Wendy to possibly jump in on this as well, because both Wendy and I were former customers. And so a lot of what you're saying is like, trying to be very reserved right now and whatnot, but I'm like, oh, I'm really excited. I really want to talk about this. So let's jump into a few things. Like you talked about time, cost, error reduction, productivity gains, and all of those things. How do you approach this? How do you have this conversation with them? Because, like, let's just throw the elephant out in the room right away. We have seated licensing. We have premium licensing. Many organizations will come in and say, I don't see the value inside premium. Why should I have to invest? Like, I'm already getting gains out of seated licensing. Where are the benefits of premium licensing? How can I save more time? How does it decrease my costs, right? How can it increase my productivity? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And maybe we'll banter a little bit with Wendy and whatnot inside of this.
So again, I start with the outcome. So I think of it like, at the end of the day, our software is a tool, right? So you're hyper focusing on like, okay, I have a hammer and my hammer can effectively help me build this house. Like, it works, it functions, right? And it does what I need it to do. Like, good enough is, as they say in the South. And then you're also saying like, okay, you've got this automatic hammer, right? That goes ka-tung, ka-tung, ka-tung. And you're just trying to upsell me on this hammer. Like, I've got a hammer. It's fine. It works. It functions. And like, yes, does your hammer work a little faster and maybe have a little more oomph to it? Sure. But like, I've got people, they've got muscles. It's totally fine. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, but like, you told me that your goal is to build this house. And I'm looking at your plan to build this house and you've got thousands of nails that you need to do. And you tell me like, once I have this house, then I can do these things and these things and these things, and it's super valuable. And then I can open up the restaurant that I'm going to have, or the little boutique that I'm building here. And I'm like, okay, I see this and I see you. And I'm like, based off of what you're telling me, you need an automatic hammer. And that's not because I'm trying to upsell you and it's more expensive. Like, is it more expensive? Yes, it's more expensive. But there is value there, right? And there is meaningful value for you in what you're trying to do in building this house. And can you get away with building a house and a hammer? 100%. But I'm genuinely trying to support you in your ultimate goal of a house by selling you this automatic hammer. And so like, that's what I kind of look at it when we talk about like basic versus premium. It all comes back to, what are you trying to do and what are the best tools to achieve that in like a reasonable time frame and a reasonable cost?
It's sort of like You can drive a Hyundai. You can drive a very inexpensive car, or you can drive a very elaborate luxury car with all the bells and whistles, and that you're feeling very comfortable. You're massaged. You're automated. It has navigation. It has all of these different amenities inside of there for you. Wendy, you were going to say something.
I'm going to disagree with that analogy just a tad bit, Ken, because that analogy assumes that you can do the same thing as well with the lesser car.
True.
And that the other things are more superfluous. And I have been a customer arguing about pricing and saying, why do I need to buy premium licenses? So I've been on the other side. I think there's a few things that were very eye-opening coming to Microsoft. The first is that, Juliet, to your point, we focus a lot on the dollars as customers. We don't necessarily intentionally have the metrics around things like how many human errors are we having? Not just our output, our productivity output, but what is the opportunity cost if we go do something manual to work around buying the license? What are we not getting to? And a lot of times we jump, like you said, straight to the dollars. I know I've fallen into that trap a little bit. And it was amazing coming to Microsoft and seeing how much we actually measure and how much that data influences our decisions and can help us make more informed decisions. That ROI is not just about the pricing and let's haggle over the pricing, but it's also about the entire opportunity. You have a really good analogy, if I can plug you a little bit, about the washing machine. Do you remember our conversation?
Yes, I love this one.
Can you share the washing machine story?
Yes. So as you guys know, I don't know if anybody's heard of Copilot recently, but yes, this is a conversation we're having often around generative AI and the value set of generative AI and helping. A lot of times I'm talking to business owners and technology owners, and they're having this whole discussion around what is the value and how do we measure the value of Copilot? How do we measure the value of integrating this AI, turbocharged kind of productivity tool into our ecosystem? And if you kind of talk about the technology, I think it gets really confusing and it doesn't really land well. So I kind of think about it as, okay, what's another productivity tool that people really understand and they use? And that is a washing machine. And so a washing machine is another productivity tool, right? So one of the things that you have to understand about a washing machine, though, is everybody wants a washing machine. I don't know any house in America where they're not, like it doesn't come standard, right? But at the same time, if you are just getting a washing machine, like if this is the first time your house has ever had a washing machine, then there are a few things that you kind of have to do up front, right? You've got to make sure that you've got water and piping for that washing machine. You can make sure you got to lay down the electricity. Like you've got to do the foundational things. And so this is the things that our IT counterparts are kind of like worried about. They're like, do we have the right pipeline to support this outcome? And then you have to actually purchase the washing machine. I know everybody loves a washing machine, but nobody likes going out and buying a new one, right? Like you have to buy a washing machine. And then there are some, ongoing costs of, the water and the electricity to run this washing machine. But at the end of the day, that washing machine gives you so much of your time back. And the value of a washing machine, if you're like trying to do an ROI statement or a value of a washing machine, it's not going to be how much faster I get my clothes washed, right? Nobody's like, oh, I can wash it in the, 15 minutes and then like, oh, okay, I save this time. The value of a washing machine is what you do while your clothes are being washed. It's the time back that it gives you and what you're doing with that time. Now, if you sat and watched your washing machine, then it's zero value to you because you're just looking at it. You're not like actually getting any value out of that washing machine. But if you put your clothes in the washing machine and then you are able to go, make dinner for your family, or you put your clothes in the washing machine and now you're able to go like make the soccer game or something else, like something of value to you, something of true value. Or, you put your clothes in the washing machine and then you go like day trade, right? Like how much money are you getting from that, right? Like different people value different things and each of them has a price point or could be put a price point on, and that is the ROI. So that's another reason why our team comes in and is like, I cannot tell you a formulaic number of the value of the productivity because it is very dependent on what you do with that. Now, you may give your employees time back and say, I'm going to invest in Copilot so that you can have more time to have more work-life balance. And that could be the goal that you're trying to achieve with it. Or you can say, I'm going to invest in Copilot so you have more time to go focus on really key initiative output of your job here, right? Like your job is probably not to live in Outlook and look at your emails all day. That's probably not the value that you bring to your company. It's probably what you're doing with those things, and that communication is required, but it's not the value add activity that you're doing day in and day out. So being able to minimize the things that are necessary, but like helping you be productive with those, and then really maximizing the value add activities that you can be doing and defining those. Like that's a big part of what we are doing with our customers today, is saying, what is the value add activities? Because as leaders, you need to be super clear in what you're expecting coming out of this investment, right? Like if you're expecting your team to do more of X, you need to define X. And so that's what we're sitting down doing in order to help create these ROI and value statements that we're doing is, do you have an X defined? And most customers don't, and that's totally fine. So we sit down and we talk about it. We define X and determine whether we can truly help different personas do, XYZ things, and say, okay, if we can increase productivity and we can actually help your people do X, even 5% more, right? We usually have a pretty conservative estimate of what we're doing. What is the value of that? And then you just do the number, you do the math, and most time it's like, 10x the investment of what the time is worth or what the product is worth. Then it's not really about cost. It's what, again, that tool can do for you.
Well, and if I can add on to that, one other value point is that you're almost having staff augmentation without having to hire more headcount.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, traditionally, we've had IT, all the backlog, all the responsibilities on our developers or IT. And depending on how you set up and use and govern the Power Platform, you can now enable your entire population to solve problems. And so your entire company is a population of innovators. And even that is a resource add, not just a time efficiency add. It's scaling across the people in your company.
Wendy, I love that you're saying that. We spoke with someone else, Alan Chai, who talked about a process whereby, short version, if the organization were to eliminate the process that they automated, I think he said it would take them 117 new employees to replace that process.
It was something crazy that they'd calculated based on the errors and the amount of time they were spending manually.
And, Juliet, your story about the washing machine, totally going to use that now.
It's helpful.
It is very, very helpful. I want to ask a little bit more about time and that being a currency, because I think that for many organizations, they purely look at the dollar sign itself and don't necessarily understand or maybe consider that time is a very, very valuable currency for us today. Wendy, I love your Copilot prompts that you share with us. It saves so much time for doing some of our tasks and whatnot. Power Automate, like I'm getting more and more into it every day and things. But I'm wondering, we have organizations like Gartner and Forrester talking about ROI and whatnot on the platform, and then them maybe even deriving specific formulas. I know you said that there is no formula, Juliet, but I'd maybe want to challenge that just a little bit for some organizations, because you also said we need to figure out what X is. And so maybe X is the time that you're saving.
Well, it's time saved and then what you're doing with that time. So there's no dollar sign for each company. Each company has to define it themselves, but there is a formula, right? There is a methodology of looking at it and saying a lot of it is upfront. You've got to do some educated guessing, right? And we tend, especially when we come in and put together financial models for our customers and putting these things together, we tend to be very conservative. We're like 5 minutes. If I can just save you 5 minutes a day, every working day. And then you put those 5 minutes towards insert something truly valuable. If I can, and there by putting 5 more minutes a day on something valuable, you believe that you can increase that valuable thing by 2%, right? Like super conservative numbers. if we can do this, then we can calculate the value of that because you've told me the value of that thing. And I've given you 5 minutes and 2% as conservative estimates. And then you can look at the value set of that. And then what's beautiful is you can go prove it out. Go do it. Execute against this in a POC, in a pilot, and see what you can do. It's really interesting that you guys are talking about like staff aug and how automation can really help accelerate through things, which is 100% true. One of the articles I read recently was actually about IKEA. And IKEA actually created a chat bot. So as you guys know on the Power Platform, like creating a chat bot and all of these things that you can do, especially for like frequently asked questions and things of that nature. But they used generative AI to create this chat bot that effectively enabled them to eliminate their entire tier 1 of customer support. So all of their people in their call centers that were taking tier 1 support were replaced by a chatbot. And I think people are really scared of this scenario, right? This is like, we should be talking about this. People are afraid of this. But I really want people to hear the IKEA story because is that a scenario that could happen? Yes. Like companies can take that route of instead of reinvesting, eliminating. But what I love about the IKEA story is they actually created a net new revenue stream with what they did with this automation. And this is where I'm talking about, let's focus on outcomes and not on technology and the tool set. It's, okay, what can we do with the time saved? So what IKEA decided is we can use this chatbot to get rid of tier 1 support. And then they skilled up all of their tier 1 support to now be custom designers. So now they have an entire like fleet of people that people can call in and get custom design help. And so people are paying for this service to get like this custom design help of like, help me design my room and, you know, understand what IKEA furniture to like put in and how to decorate it and all of this. So now they are these like custom designers. So they've got a net new revenue stream with these people. They've got happier customers on customer support 24/7 in the native language that you're speaking. So there's like a lot of benefits for the customers, a lot of benefits for IKEA, and now they have a net new revenue stream. And so that's one of those things where those are the stories that I really love to tell. It's not just about eliminating, it's innovating and really thinking outside of the box on, okay, what are the things that we're trying to do?
I mean, I absolutely love that story, especially the point where we talk about reskilling the individuals and that no one loses their jobs or anything, right? There's such a bit of fear in the industry when we talk about copilots. And I've heard from some organizations not turning AI on at all whatsoever. I would say to maybe some of those potential folks that are considering never using AI, might want to think about that a little bit. Wendy, I'm fairly certain that you might have some additional thoughts.
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm super passionate about and I've been following closely. It's actually a debate I've been having with a lot of extended family, so it's near and dear to my heart. But, you know, I think that there are 3 options organizations can choose. They can, as you said, Ken, ignore it. And it's not just AI, it's these automation tools, the Power Platform, right? The extensibility, the ability for a knowledge worker to solve their own problems in a technical capacity without having to rely on a developer or a data scientist to help them solve those problems. And you can either ignore that, or you can kind of do the scary thing of, wow, we can keep the same amount of output and just lay people off and put in these tools, which honestly is short-sighted. It's short-term gains, but long-term, you actually aren't innovating and you aren't evolving. And where I really believe the future is, and I've been watching, I also have heard the IKEA story, Juliet, I've watched that carefully as well as some others, is organizations that say, okay, we're going to automate what we can. We're going to save and protect our human capital and put them where we need them to be able to produce things we never thought possible or exponentially grow our business and create new products. And ultimately that is the strategic lens, right? And not just being in a reactionary state there. So Juliet, we talked a lot about the why. We've talked about the importance. We've talked about the different kinds, like what is ROI. I really, really want to get to the how because I think that's where a lot of people get lost. So we talked a little bit about the specific ROI. If you can get the value that you're looking for, you can give a bit of a formula. But you have a whole worksheet and data sheet that you walk customers through that I've seen. And can you talk us through what you are like? What data points do they need to collect? And then what do they need to do with that data? And how do they actually how can they do this on their own, maybe internally, before they start a conversation with Microsoft?
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to give like the consultant answer. It depends. Depending on what you are looking to kind of calculate, I would always start with capabilities. Like, what are the capabilities that you need to achieve? So if just like planning out any kind of project, it's like, okay, what do we need to get done? Right? Like, what are the capabilities I am looking for as I'm looking for this new technology investment? I would encourage customers to almost rank those capabilities, right? Like, these are like the absolute need to haves. And these are the like, if I had a magic wand, a tool would be able to do this. And then go explore the tool sets that are capable of doing those things. So that's like understanding what is required and then understanding and exploring the tool sets and the different costs that kind of like meet the requirements, if you will. So that's cost. And then you should also understand why. Like we talked about that, start with why. Why do you need these things? Why is there investment? Why would your company put any money into this? Like, what is the value that you are seeking to bring to your organization? And can you put a dollar amount to that? And if you can't put a dollar amount to that, I would encourage you to just start asking questions of the people that are asking you, go out and do this thing. Ask them why we're doing it. We're doing this because we need to. I mean, even simple things can be kind of fuzzy, I would say. Like, we're doing this because we need to improve the employee experience. Okay, what is the value of improving the employee experience? Well, it's employee retention. Okay, so what is the cost of losing an employee, or what's the value of keeping an employee? So asking some of these questions on value and cost to help you understand like the give that you're trying to put together. You understand the get is the cost of whatever the investment is, but like the give is what is the value coming out of that. So asking questions like, what are we trying to do? What's the value of those things that we are trying to do? And putting those down, right? Like writing those all out, because that's really what we do in our models is we understand, okay, here are the capability sets. This is what you're doing today. Like having a clear understanding of current state is very important as well. Here are all the investments that you're making today in order to do those capability sets today. Here are your current hammers, if you will. And perhaps you have multiple hammers and you really just need an automated hammer. You could get rid of like all of these different tools if you just bought this one tool, and you could kind of make that analysis. You can also make the analysis for something net new because of the things that it provides, right? The revenue that it'll provide or the acceleration of value. So you have to kind of determine which type of model are you really putting together. Are you doing a comparison model, in which case capabilities, what you're currently investing in, what that future investment looks like, and then you put that math together? Or are you looking at like something net new, in which case you're going to do some guesswork. There's no specific way for you to know the future, and if you have that crystal ball, then you're probably not having this conversation. But like a lot of that is guesswork and predictions, but there are research papers done on things that you can go find from the Gartners and the Forresters and the Harvard Business Reviews of the world, where they tell you on average businesses save X% when they keep employees, for example. So you could go use research-backed statistics to help you put together a really solid business plan as you're looking to present that to mostly, I would say, CFOs or the business sponsors who are investing in whatever you're looking to put together. So that's kind of the rough framework of kind of how we look at putting these models together.
There's one thing I think, I love this conversation. I'm trying not to go into full customer mode here, Juliet, and just start asking just like all kinds of other things, like tell me about. Sorry, I digress. Back to my normal self here, which includes talking about admin and security and governance. One of the things I love about the product and that is near and dear to my heart from an ROI and TCO standpoint is that the platform is what I like to call sometimes a displacement for shadow IT. It absolutely helps to eliminate all those, what's the old term that we used to use, the server under the desk type of scenarios, if you will. I wonder, do we also consider that in terms of talking to the customer and talking to the administrators, the security teams, and say, hey, listen, here's the value that you're also getting from a security standpoint, from governance, from those particular scenarios. I know you touched on a little bit about supportability. Maybe as we start to get to a close, we could maybe end with that note and let Wendy land the plane after you're done.
Yeah, well, I'm super biased, as you can imagine. And I tell my customers this often. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk about Microsoft solutions to your business problems because I'm biased. But one of those biased things is just the integration of our platform into a lot of the, I would say amplified security and things and supportability and services, but also every single one of our products is built with security and zero trust in mind, right? So we have a zero trust framework at Microsoft. Every single one of our products is built with that in mind. So it's meant for enterprise, right? It's meant for, the people who are going to be actively targeted by these, types of bad actors in the world. It's built with them in mind. And then it's scaled out to help the 1-2 shop people, right, who are just trying to get something off the ground, but it's still got that built-in security for them. And then as you kind of get bigger and bigger and need a little bit more advanced technology in order to support that ecosystem, you also have that integration with the products that we have on our security side and our supportability and governance side, which is super, super important, especially as you get into the applications that have this sensitive business data. But having that built in and natively integrated is such a great story for our IT friends, because they can tell you, especially our security teams, on average, a security team is trying to host and integrate 800 applications. It is a mad, mad world out there that they're trying to just eliminate risk across all of this ever expanding footprint. But with Microsoft, it makes that so much easier for them, because they're like, okay, this has common core code, and I can just snap in and kind of get at least that application under control while I go, chase down the rest of shadow IT. So it's actually quite nice for them to be able to enable their business users to go play and create what they need to create without, being the desk of no, while still making sure that they're doing.
That's my desk. I love
So
that.
you're talking to Dr. No. So
yes, well, it enables the desk of no, Dr. No, to be a little bit more yes, right? Go play, and I feel like I can truly, keep you safe without even you having to think about it or work on that. So it's a huge advantage in being able to have a platform versus onesie-twosie applications.
yeah, we think about return on investment in terms of the benefit that you're getting or the time you're saving or the output, but it's also mitigating bad things from happening and the risk of your IP or sensitive data being lost and the compromise. And that in and of itself has a full ROI. So you're totally right there, Juliet. I'm getting angry looks from our producer, VA, because I'm going to ask one more question before I wrap. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So in this age of AI, I know you talked about the Copilot story with the washing machine here, but does AI and the way that we're infusing it into our products, does that change at all how you're measuring ROI, or do these principles that you've shared kind of stand regardless of whether artificial intelligence is integrated into the tool?
It's a great question. I would say that the principles still stand, right? The principles still stand. It's still about understanding what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. What I love about AI is it just makes that ROI look so much better because you're getting there so much faster. It is basically infusing tools with electricity, and now we can do it so much better and faster. But the ROI and the calculation on how you would do that and the frameworks and the models would remain the same. It's just the possibilities are so much cooler. And if you're not, I will say this, because we were talking about people being hesitant to kind of adopt AI. I would say this, not adopting AI in this moment in time is tantamount to not adopting the internet in the 90s.
Yeah, that's true.
Could you survive? Are there businesses out there who do not have a website and aren't on the internet? 100%. They exist, but they are not the competitors. They are not the top, 500 companies that we're looking at, right? Like if you plan to be in business into the future, AI is going to be part of your business plan, and it needs to be something that you're looking into.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe they should ask AI if they should be using AI.
Or ask AI to teach them about AI. AI is a great teacher. Go to Bing. You have the chatbot, you have access to ChatGPT in Bing today. It's for free. It's awesome. And if you don't know what to do with it, start with having it make you a meal plan. This is my favorite way to introduce people to AI. I have it make it makes my meal plan every single week, and I love it.
I love that. And I could totally go off on the on the AI examples. I won't right now. I'll try to get off my soapbox. So, Juliet, I am so excited that we had you on this podcast. We will include some resources if you have anything to share in the show notes. I know there's one blog post that Microsoft has published on measuring the business value of Power Platform Solutions that we'll also include. But would love to have you back. And I also want to shout out to our listeners who gave us this feedback. We had multiple requests for this episode. So please, please, please keep the feedback coming, because that allows us to bring in awesome people like Juliet and who really are experts in this and have these conversations every day. We would love to have you back. I'm sure there's lots more questions on this topic. And so we would love to have you as a regular on the podcast.
I would love to be back. This was super fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks, Saul.